Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's Reading the Red this rainy, dreary morning. Matthew chapter 24, and today we're looking at verse 7. Jesus comes to the disciples again, and he reiterates, he re-emphasizes, and he, having given the first example, things are going to be like this when this happens. He then says in verse 7, "For nations will rise against nations, and kingdoms against kingdoms, and there will be famines and earthquakes in various places." So nations will rise against nations, kingdoms against kingdoms. I guess ever since the first murder, there has been conflict. Jesus is saying that in the end of the age, nations will rise against nations, kingdoms against kingdoms. There will be earthquakes in many places and famines. And again, this whole dynamic of the brokenness and the manifestation of the brokenness, whether it's in the creation of the earth or whether it's in the sustaining of the well-being of human life. Jesus is saying that these things are going to be with you and they're going to multiply, they're going to increase. And that's always been true, that these things are there and they have always been there. And maybe they are escalating. And you know, how many wars are going on at one time? It seems like there's always a war somewhere. But what about the end? How can we read this sign to indicate the end of the age? How can we take almost a sense of a signal or a sign and say, when we see these things, then we know this thing is happening? I guess what Jesus is saying is that we can't use this expression of what's going on in the world as a means of discovering the end of the age. And again, like I said before, because no one knows the end of the age. And it is no value in us spending all of our time trying to find out when the end of the age comes. What we need to be doing is we need to be living as if it's the end of the age, so that when the end of the age comes, we will not be caught unawares. You know, life is so precious, and we need to take full advantage of every day that we have. You'll remember I shared with you a few months ago, nearly a year ago now, about my friend, my son's friend, who became our friend, like a son. Had a tumour, has been in hospital recently, hospice, and sadly yesterday he lost that battle and he died. And our friend Rob has died. And his life is gone. He was 38. And we get so caught up in the dynamics of trying to establish things that aren't really that important and trying to find out the end of the age. It ain't that important because it's going to come. And when it comes, we just need to know that we're ready for it. And being ready is being right with God. And that's what Jesus came to do, to keep us right with God, to get us right with God, and then to keep us right with God. Brothers and sisters, don't waste your time trying to establish things that aren't really there to be established. If God says they're not there to be discovered, they're not there to be discovered. Thank you for joining me. Have a great day. Please pray for the family and this great loss in Jesus.